subarctic cultures. It's a necessity for survival in an environment defined by the distinctive cycles of the seasons. The present paper takes a long perspective on the cultural significance of wood as a medium of communication from prehistory to the present day. This sweeping 20-minute survey will show that wood has not only functional and practical characteristics, it is also a material or a medium which affects the way in which the reality is conceived and made intelligible. In a sense, trees and wood are good to think with. In this communicative task, trees and wood have an ambiguous role. In the forest, trees are living organisms, part of the nature. But when they are cut down and worked upon, they are made part of human culture. As a consequence, wood has a dual role in subarctic cultures. The ambiguity between the nature and culture is a major part of the communicative function of wood, still present in the modern world. I begin with the geographic scope of my paper. The subarctic is a region in northern hemisphere immediately south of the Arctic. It covers much of Alaska, Canada, the north of Scandinavia and Siberia. And I will concentrate on northern Scandinavia in this paper. But similar phenomena are detectable in other parts of the subarctic as well. The subarctic climate is characterized by long, usually very harsh, winters and short, mild summers. Vegetation is generally of low diversity, as only hardy species can survive the long winters. Trees are mainly conifers. Due to natural infertility of soils, agricultural potential in the subarctic is generally poor. Hence, varied and thorough utilization of wilderness resources has been vital for human life in the ancient pre-modern times. Subarctic forests provided wood as a renewable source of energy for heating and lighting. It was also utilized as raw material of buildings, tools, and cult objects, among other things. The consumption of wood left its imprint even in the pre-modern landscape. Trees were heavily used near settlement sites. This meant that the environment around settlements was without trees, usually. When the resources became too scarce, the community seasonally moved into another location. Wood was also a major cultural medium, allowing specific modes of communication and sociability. This is very tangible with the earliest wooden means of transportation. Since the Stone Age, skis, sleds, and boats made of wood have enabled the movement of goods, ideas, and humans across the subarctic wilderness. Even shoes, like these, were produced from wood by interlaying bands of birch bark. Wooden equipment was particularly favorable in the wintertime conditions. Without ice and snow, that is, in the summertime, one has repeatedly to cross over numerous rivers and lakes or carry a boat. This makes traveling very slow in the summertime. Altogether, 250 ancient skis have been discovered in the box and other waterlogged places of Scandinavia, the oldest from around 3400 BCE. They are of general types occurring in the boreal and Arctic zones. The ancient ski was rather wide and heavy compared to the present-day equipment, but it allowed cross-country skiing in heavy snow in places where there were no leveled-out paths like today. Many of the ancient skis are intricately ornamented with interlaced or geometric patterns. From an anthropological perspective, the application of ornamentation is a sign that trees were transformed into pieces of culture. They were marked with human labor. Similar significance can be seen in the way in which ancient skis have preserved to our time. They are usually individual finds, not pairs of skis. If they were left behind by accident or as waste, one should discover pairs of skis at one place. But this is not the case. In many cases, even their bindings for shoes were intentionally broken before they were deposited into the bog. This suggests that the majority of archaeological ski finds are actually ritual depositions. The significance of such rituals is not entirely understood, but they nevertheless show that skis as products of human culture had to be specifically treated before they could be returned to the state of nature. Another example of early means of transportation is dugout canoes or boats made of hollowed tree trunks. These kinds of vessels are known throughout the Subarctic region, and the oldest ones have been dated with the Stone Age. The tradition of wooden boats has lived on to the modern age and documented by ethnologists. In pre-modern cultures, there were no clear-cut distinction between the mundane and the supernatural. Instead, they formed a continuous unity. However, the modern archaeologists have considered what modern archaeologists have considered as clear evidence of religious beliefs are idols carved of wood. Such idols are known across the subarctic region since the Stone Age. Another religious phenomenon is the ancient mythology related to trees. Especially the idea of world tree is a motif present in several religions and mythologies, particularly in the European tradition, Siberia, and Native American religions. The world tree is represented as a colossal tree which supports the heavens, thereby connecting the heavens and the terrestrial world, and through its roots, the underworld. Hence, wood structures the way in which the entire universe is conceived. A more tangible example of tree mythology is the subarctic tradition of holy trees. It shows well how trees are good to think with. The variety of tree species in the subarctic and their distinctive uses and meanings establish a particular categorization or understanding of the world. In this way, trees give substance or reference point to the relationship between the nature and humans at large. For instance, in Finno-Ugric cultures, rowan is considered a holy tree. Rowan allows communication with the supernatural and the forces of the nature. Even today, it is common for Finnish farms to have one so-called home rowan growing in the yard or garden. Rowan's sacred status among the subarctic trees is defined by its distinctive non-utility. Such highly useful trees as birch, pine, and spruce are considered masculine in Finno-Ugric cultures. They have straight and strong trunks, and they grow tall, unlike rowan. These other trees are easily utilized in construction of buildings and various practicalities of daily living. Rowan, in contrast, has no domestic use, and it lives in marginal areas like rocky archipelagos, cliffs, and the sides of roads and fields. Consequently, rowan is seen to transgress and define the border between the natural and cultural, between this worldly and the supernatural, because it has no practical function. In the Finno-Ugric mythology, rowan has also a symbolic association with women. Both are considered sacred and connected with fertility. Due to its feminine nature, rowan was seen as both protective and harmful. It was considered to be the most beautiful species of trees, but also the rebel of the nature. The flowering of rowan, with its white flowers in the spring and then carrying the red berries in the autumn, defined the limits of the growing period. Rowan normalizes the change of seasons. In the Christian period, rowan was identified with the Virgin Mary and how she gave birth to Christ's child. Women, similarly, are considered life-givers and protectors, and thus both women and rowan are both part of the nature and culture. They both are inside and outside at the same time, and thus sacred. At the beginning of the modern period, around the 16th and 17th centuries, such beliefs gradually gave way to Christian and rational scientific worldviews. Particularly, modern technologies have transformed the communicative quality of wood. Although the Industrial Revolution was heavily dependent on wood resources, the efficient economic exploitation of subarctic forests took a long time. They were difficult regions to access, and scientific explorations to the subarctic did not take place until the 17th and 19th centuries. Exports to international markets were mostly in the form of firewood, planks and timber. Wooden bowls, furniture and other handicraft products were exported locally or regionally. However, since the 17th century, subarctic forests were a major source for tar and pitch. They were used to preserve seafaring ships against drought and required by the large fleets of such colonial powers as the British Empire. In fact, tar and pitch were pivotal for colonial endeavors and keeping up the international networks of communication. Most recently, in the 20th century, subarctic wood has come to be exploited as the raw material of paper industry and turned into medium of information dissemination. The global progress of modernity and the series of technological innovations in communication have revolutionized the utilization of wood in the subarctic. Wood nonetheless retains its importance as a cultural medium of communication. Reminiscent of the pre-modern distinction between the nature and culture is the manner in which wood articulates and passes on indigenous, regional and national identities. In this way, wood becomes frequently paired with modernism. For instance, one consequence of modernism is the rise of nationalism in the 19th century. In many countries located in the subarctic, nationalism became understood through wood. Wooden houses and the handicrafts were seen as the manifestation of national heritage and the rural roots of the nation. While folklore was archived as intangible heritage of the national past, the 19th century ethnologists collected wooden artifacts into museums and documented various vernacular practices related to consumption of wood. Similar processes began in the 20th century when indigenous peoples like the Sami, the Native Americans, have started to form stronger political and cultural entities. One manifestation of the liaison between wood and modernity is the notion of Nordic design, a notion that was created in the course of the 20th century. Importantly, the transformation of wood into material of contemporary design has happened through new technologies of molding wood. Although modernistic design with its steel pipe constructed furniture, as such Central European designers as Mies van der Rohe and Marcel Breuer was introduced to the Nordic countries very early on, it remained rather marginal in the early 20th century. Modernism was considered too foreign and irrelevant among the large public. It was not until the 1930s that modernism became a household style, when the Finnish architect Alvar Aalto created a new kind of wooden furniture. Along with new forms and shapes, wood modernism was made possible by new techniques of laminating and bending wood. They allowed bending wood 90 degrees or even more without breaking its fibers. However, the ingeniousness of these objects is not merely technological or formal, but in the cultural play in which modernism is domesticated, in a sense. Modernism was made into an extension of local wood tradition. The same domestication applies to other countries and designers as well. Wood has connotations of authenticity, wildness, and regional identity, but it becomes modernized, the application of new technologies and smooth surfaces. Here, wood plays a dual role. It is a piece of subarctic nature communicating modernist ideals. To conclude, in subarctic cultures, wood has defined, on the one hand, the lines of communication between humans, and on the other hand, between humans and the forces of nature. The Stone Age keys are pieces of nature made into culture with human labor, and then returned to the state of nature through the ritual deposition. The tradition of holy trees similarly shows how wood has provided pre-modern subarctic cultures with an effective material which in itself has communicated and structured cultural meanings. This combination of natural and cultural is present even in the modern period as a distinction between authentic material or local heritage and modernism, both communicated through wood. Thank you.